it's all these little things that can prevent you from being successful that are all wins. And the first thing is to realize that we're not born a champion. That's something that has to be created. It has to be fulfilled. There's a process that goes with that. And so it's like, what does it take to rise above our weakness in order to be strong and to be capable?
Scott Hamilton, Olympian, cancer survivor, author, and inspirational leader, just to name a few of his titles, is no stranger to resilience, battles, and some pretty amazing wins. But he believes he is not done yet. My name's Suzanne Reed, LBMC's Chief Marketing Officer, and your host for Make It Count. Scott, good afternoon. So glad to have you.
Well, is there a time? Because people can listen to this whenever they want.
They
so we
can
can
listen.
say,
good morning.
Good day.
Good day.
Good
There
day.
you go. I like that.
Good day.
Good
Or as
day.
they say in Australia, good day. All right.
So I'm going to start out with a question I've asked all of our guests as
Okay.
kind of the first question, but I had to change it a little bit for you.
I bet.
Because my question is typically, okay, you're 3 months from retirement.
Mhm.
What are you going to do with the next 3 months? But I don't feel like Scott Hamilton. What is retirement for Scott Hamilton?
It's constant and endless, and it takes on so many different shapes and forms. Like, I'm not a competitive skater anymore, so I retired from that. And then I toured for 20 years, and I'm not a touring skater anymore, so I don't do that.
Right.
And I did 9 Olympics as a broadcaster, and who knows if I'm going to continue to do that.
Right.
And then I do corporate speaking, and I'm there at the request and the invitation of whoever wants me. So who knows how long I'm going to be doing that. And I'm stepping into a new season with the Skating Academy with the Nashville Predators, where I'll be taking on more responsibility for that. So that's new. I haven't retired from that yet. That's kind of like I'm stepping into a new job. And then with the foundation, I mean, we're trying to elevate research to save lives in cancer. So that's kind of a combination between daily epiphanies to whack-a-mole to just how do you continue to raise the bar and continue to raise money at a level that allows for the organization to grow, have more impact, more resources. And so that's just constant. And I'd love to retire from that, but we're not doing that until cancer is gone. So hopefully in my lifetime, we can make enough of an impact where it can be turned from, in many respects, like for my mom, it was a death sentence. But for me, like I'm 27 years and counting, so of a survivor. So,
That's great.
but that's
Let's
what research
celebrate that.
does. That's what research does, right?
That's
So,
right.
that's aspirational. So, when you talk about, the next 3 months before retirement, it's like, I don't see that happening anytime soon, but
Okay.
we just sort of roll from one thing to the next. I've always told people, it's something I found out in Pyeongchang when I was at the Olympics there. They were talking about Lindsey Vonn retiring from skiing. And, it's like what happens to so many people when they retire is they get sick, right?
Right.
And it's like you're running on a treadmill and then the treadmill's going like 8 miles an hour and you just stop running.
Right.
It's like, bam. So I learned that it's really not healthy to retire from something. It's really, really healthy to retire to something.
I like that.
And I try to tell people all the time, especially people that have had super active careers or I've been on the top of the pyramid. I played golf with a former CEO of Ford Motor Company one time. And he goes, what the life expectancy? He was retiring. I said, congratulations. And he goes, And I go, well, what? You don't want to leave your job? He goes, no, it's just the life expectancy of someone who started on a line and worked their way up to CEO. When they leave, their life expectancy is less than a year.
Oh, wow.
And it's because it's just whatever those juices are, they keep flowing, and whatever is your reason to get up in the morning, and you're slaying gigantic dragons, and it's such a part of your identity that when you stop, it's like the void is so gigantic that you can't breathe. And so it's just that whole idea of like, why stop doing anything? It's just, if you're going to retire from a job, that's logical. Again, I've had so many different identities that it's almost like retiring just feels so natural to go on to the next. But it's not retiring from, it's retiring to.
I love that. But I do think you're going to get our award for the highest number of retire periods, right? I think we're going to give you that award
Well,
today.
a lot of them, like, when I retired from the ice capades, it's because they didn't want me anymore. It wasn't a retirement. It was like a termination.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's fine because when a door closes, a window opens. And
Absolutely.
if I would have stayed there, I never would have been able to found Stars and Ice, So, being the founder of Stars and Ice was such an opportunity, and it was so life-giving that I ended up doing that for 18 years.
I think that's a great point. And wow, all of the things you've just talked about. First of all, you're an athlete. You're an Olympic athlete, a cancer survivor, not one time, but...
Well, I've had 3 brain tumors, but, I was kind of born with that, and it did a lot of mischief when I was little.
Right.
I stayed little because of that, I guess. But, it's again, a blessing, because without it, I never would have started skating. Without it, I never would have been my stature, which was perfect for what I wanted to do in that sport. And, I just fit places better. So I'm kind of really grateful for the brain tumor. And it's been a rough road in the beginning getting rid of it, but I think I'm on the other side of that now. So
maybe it's not cancer survivor, maybe it's just survivor.
Survivor,
right?
Yeah.
I'm feeling a theme of adversity and attitude, definitely an attitude of faith and belief, and obviously God. So you have so many things. And one of my questions was to ask you, what was there one thing that's kind of put you on your path when you were younger? But I'm hearing it sounds like your path has been very
it's been
unusual.
complicated. So there's always been this thing where I knew that I was sort of on my own in a way, and spending 4 years in hospitals when I was little, from 4 to 8, my mom would sleep in the chair in the corner as many times as she could, but it was rough, right? It's not like now where they have day beds and they have all these, entertainment choices. It was just a really sterile environment with a bed, a linoleum floor, and a chair in the corner that was not comfortable. And so she would sleep in the chair as many times as she could. But I had to learn how to be on my own a lot. And I learned a lot about, where's that little girl that was in that room? Her dad used to bring me a balloon, and she's not there anymore. Well, she's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I liked her. I remember all those times. But when you sort of like have to go through periods as a young person, that's kind of how you're imprinted. That's your worldview. And my worldview is always, there's going to be another test. There's going to be another period of fear, or, maybe there's some pain involved, or there's, doctors coming in and not really knowing what's happening. So, there's all that. And then, skating and failing and falling and getting up and failing and not doing well in this and failing that test and just sort of plodding along, just trying to figure out who I am in this sport. You learn a lot,
Absolutely.
And it was remarkable that even the other day I was talking, there's this young golfer, a high school golfer here that's just, I think he's going to be the next Tiger Woods. I really do. I think he's just amazingly talented, and he's also a great young man. And I ran into him and he said, yeah, I just came back from Minnesota. I didn't make the cut. And I go, wow, you know what the greatest teacher is? He goes, who? I go, no, it's what? And it's failure. It's like falling short. It teaches you more than anything else ever could. John Wooden, the basketball coach from UCLA, he had a great quote, and I love to share it. It's just, he said, my teams never lose. But he just said either they win or they learn.
That's right.
And it's so important that we don't look at failure as something disfiguring, or, like a lot of people, and I did this for a long time. I'd take all my failures, I'd put them in a bag, and I'd carry them around with me. And it was one of those things where I just had to learn that, all those failures now, as hard as they were to experience, they were all to expose that I wasn't doing things the way I should be doing them. And it's remarkable how that can be such there's no better way to learn than to kind of feel that sting of failure and kind of go, okay, I have to look myself right in the mirror and say, okay, let's do this another way. Let's do this differently. And in that, you can drop the bag that with all your failures in it, or you can burn it, or you can do whatever else you want to do ceremonially. You can throw it off a cliff. You can whatever you want. Drop it in the ocean and let it drop all the way to the bottom. But it's something that people avoid failure. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to plan to fail, but at the same time, it's like that's how you learn. That's how you grow. And no one's immune to it.
So with all of that, I think you actually wrote a book a while back called Finish First, right? And you talked about that winning's everything. So somebody hearing you talk about this right now might say, wait a minute, but how would you define winning?
I said winning changes everything.
Ah, okay.
It does.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes.
Once you hit that first kind of win, that it changes kind of a lot of things. It changes the air in the room. It changes how you believe in yourself. It also changes how other people look at you and what they're willing to trust you with. And so opportunity comes out of those big and little wins. Like showing up to work on time is a win.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You know, getting something, not procrastinating is a win. It's all these little things that can prevent you from being successful that are all wins. And the first thing is to realize that we're not born a champion. That's something that has to be created. Right. It has to be fulfilled. There's a process that goes with that. And so Finish First was basically all of that. It's like, what does it take to rise above our weakness in order to be strong and to be capable?
And you've got so many examples of that. Just amazing story that I just sit and think about just the things you've named today. And I know there's others that you probably haven't named, right? That you've overcome adversity.
Oh, I went through a period where I was so, I don't know, just the way I looked at the world and everything else, I would just, it was all about skating. It was all about finding more success in that my life was completely out of balance. I failed at every relationship I was ever in. It was one thing after another, after another, after another. And it was, I was doing well here, but I really wasn't very good there, and I was really lacking there. And this way, I was tragic, right? So my life was sort of like this real weird teeter-totter of all these things. Kind of like I would go up and I'd crash down. I'd go up and I'd crash down. It's like when is this going to end? And then I was 50 cities into a 60-city tour in 1997. I decided to get to the root of the problem of my abdominal pain, and I was diagnosed with cancer, and that was probably, I would say, the best thing that's ever happened to me. It was probably the worst thing, and it was probably also the hardest thing, but it was in its way, it just stopped me in my tracks, and it made me sort of reevaluate everything. Mm-hmm. And I had some time out. I had to go through chemo, I had to go through surgery, I had to, kind of deal with all of the identity things of, will I ever be able to get back to where I was before?
Right.
And that was a huge part of the journey of just saying, I know I want to get back on tour next year. I want to be back next year. I got to get back. And I don't know why I felt so strongly about getting back next year, but it was kind of the carrot that kept, kind of having me, marching forward, is just trying to figure out how I can get back to where I was before, but smarter, richer, and more wise about how I want to do next. And then I met my wife, kind of accidentally, providentially, however you want to say it. I met her, and there was something about her that just changed the fact that I really didn't want to be by myself anymore. I was okay with doing that for a while, and I was kind of put my toe in the water a little bit and then pull it out. And then when I met her, I was like, something different about this.
Right.
And in that, she was the one that brought up, where are you in your faith? Because it's important to me. And I said what any smart guy would say. I said, where do you want me to be?
That's right.
But no, it was in that. It answered more questions than it created out of the gate. And now I'm just filled with amazing questions that get answered every time I spend time in the Word. But it's like allowing for your failures to be a springboard to things that you would never have thought possible.
So I think you probably just gave some wise words to anyone listening, whether you're sports, business, just in your everyday life, right? Just be open to that adversity and to use it to learn from it, right?
Well, adversities, it's going to happen no matter what.
Right, right.
It's like
it's your attitude about it,
well,
right?
it's how you approach it and how you process it.
Right.
The information and being okay with, okay, I'm not where I want to be right now. That's not going to stop me, and they're going to be, where you just have to surrender stuff. It's like, I'm sitting here. We're sitting in a proton therapy center right now.
Yes.
And they take the proton out of hydrogen atoms and they spin it at 2/3 the speed of light and they cure cancer with these protons. And it's like, aspirationally, I have this foundation to create new pathways to recovery and back to life. And that's a huge aspiration. It's going to come with a lot of big decisions, and there's no way in the world I could ever do it alone. I've got a phenomenal executive director. I've got a great board. We're growing in a way that is going to allow us to step into greater roles of impact and significance. We just got to keep pushing on that accelerator pedal and get through it. But in that, I know that there's going to be a lot of these research programs that prove that they didn't have it right. But you'll never know that unless you go through that process.
That's right. Obviously, as a cancer survivor myself, that has a lot of meaning to me, that there are people out there that are willing to fund the research and do the effort and put their money in their mouth and their words and their service towards those things.
And I'm a serial optimist.
That's right.
I can find good in just about anything. Right?
Absolutely. And so I would absolutely say anyone listening to this today would say Scott Hamilton's attitude is definitely on the positive side, right?
Well, I mean, we're just sitting here. I don't know if the audio picked it up, but a bell just rang. And that signifies that somebody just ended their treatment.
Oh,
and
yes.
they're stepping into their life anew.
That's right.
And it's fun to sit. I get goosebumps like every time I'm sitting in my office and I hear bong.
I love it.
Bong, bong. It's like, okay, life begins anew.
That's right.
And it's beautiful that this place exists and that these modalities exist to kind of, in a really cool, authentic way to treat the cancer and spare the patient harm, people are able to get back to their lives authentically.
Absolutely. And there's a great community. So we know Scott Hamilton, who has been talking to us today, is very successful. We've seen many of your successes, but you've talked quite a bit about failures that you've experienced and adversity you've experienced along the way. But tell us what today, sitting here, what do you think Scott Hamilton's vocation is today? You've talked again about these successes you've had in these different roles. You've opened the conversation with so many of those. What do you consider? Are you a foundation starter? Are you a skater? Are you an athlete? Are you an Olympian? What do you consider yourself?
That's a really hard question to answer because I think all of it, whether it be skating or broadcasting or speaking or cancer foundation work, it's all kind of meant to come out of a foundation of encouragement. I really believe that throughout. I'm last place guy. Even when I won my first world figure skating championship, I was like, the sport's at its lowest place in history if I'm its champion. And it's like, I got to find a way to do better. I got to do better. But what it turns into being is like, if we can all just step back and encourage, step back and just allow our stories to resonate maybe with somebody else in a way that they can say, oh, I thought their life was easy. You think, okay, somewhere in a drawer in Colorado Springs is my Olympic gold medal, right?
Right.
Who cares? But I'm just saying that, it kind of represents a moment, right? But that's all it represents. That's it. It represents a moment. So I don't want it near me. I don't want it around me. I don't want to have to look at this thing ever again, really, because it turns into an anchor. And an anchor does good things, right? An anchor can anchor your life in one of, where people look at you like, oh, you won an Olympic gold medal. Well, 45 people won Olympic gold medals in this last Summer Olympics, right? Okay, it can happen if things line up. But I'm the most unlikely one, I believe, ever in my sport. There's no way in the world I ever should have become an Olympic gold medalist, ever. And in that, I just try to share that encouragement. Like if I can do it, like pretty much everybody can do it. It's just like one of those things where I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, but it's also surviving cancer. It's also coming back from, these 3 brain tumors. And it's also, again, I joke, when I was growing up, I'd watch a lot of TV. And 2 of the people I liked the most were back then Tennessee Ernie Ford, right? Loved him, loved his voice. But I also watched Art Linkletter every day.
Oh, wow.
Because I thought he was just amazing. Kids say the darndest things. Yes. So I'm on a shuttle bus at an airport, and Art Linkletter's on the bus, and we're the only 2 on the bus. And I went up and I introduced myself. And I just said, Mr. Linkletter, I was a huge fan of yours growing up. And he goes, Scott? And I was like, it's like, how does he know like, how is this even possible that he even knows who I am? And he goes, I know you. Oh, you've been through so much. Childhood illness, am I right? And I go, yes, sir. And he goes, and then you had cancer? And I go, yeah, I went through cancer. And he goes, and you balded publicly. And I just said, yeah. It was like I didn't know that was a disability until that moment. But it was one of those things where it's like everything can be a disability.
Absolutely.
Everything can be an ability. Everything, it just comes down to a choice. And there's a quote I had when I was going through cancer. I said, the only true disability in life is a bad attitude. And I really believe that because I've met too many people. I can show you countless pictures on my phone of people that I've had the blessing to meet and others that I just idolize that have done extraordinary things with unthinkable obstruction.
Absolutely.
Like there's a guy I read about, his name was Kyle Maynard. I'll never forget him. I've never met him. I want to. He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with a soldier's ashes on his back. Like a lot of people have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Right.
But has anybody done it without arms or legs? No. And I met another guy, Daniel Ritchie. He was born without arms, and his parents just said, figure it out. I need to mow the lawn. But no, figure it out. There's no can't. And he's so remarkable, and the joy that he exudes is so contagious that I can't be around him enough. And another boy I met a long time ago was burned over 85% of his body. And he was the president of his junior high school class because he was the most popular one in his class. It's like, how can, you look at that disfigurement, you look at all those things, and you look at, he didn't have fingers, he didn't have ears, and he had to learn how to hammer nails at a church thing where they were building, and he had to figure it out, and he did. And it's just like, that's the whole thing with life is we got to just figure it out. And once we figure it out, we own it, right?
That's right.
Find joy in what you're doing. And in that, excellence will come out of that in some way, shape, or form, or at least you will reach your potential. And there's no greater feeling in the world than knowing that, wow, I worked hard enough at something where I understand what my potential was. And even if I'm not standing on the top of a podium, or even if I'm not even good enough to maybe even be competitive in something athletic or whatever, I know that I've taken this as far as I can take it, and now there's another hill to climb. And that's where I am right now in my faith. I spend a lot of time in the Word, and every time it knocks me down with, I needed that today. And it delivered in such a big, huge, profound way that I can't wait to do this again tomorrow.
I hear in everything you've said today, learning, getting better, facing adversity head on, can keep going.
It's easy to quit.
No quit in your vocabulary.
It's easy to quit.
Absolutely.
Like I quit trying to dunk a basketball. Like I quit a lot of things because It's just like, okay, it's not my thing. But at the same time, it's like if there is an encouragement, it is, if there's something that's put on your heart. Like when I wrote Finish First, I met a little girl in Korea. And I did a Finish First talk, and I talked about identity and purpose and all these different things. And this little girl came up to me and she goes, okay, I don't get it. And I go, what? She goes, what, purpose? And I said, yeah. I go, we all have a purpose. And she goes, I'm not good at anything.
Oh.
And all I heard was, how many times has this little girl heard that she's not good at anything? And I go, okay, let's break this thing down. What brings you joy? What do you like to do? What are you naturally drawn to? And she goes, well, I love to read. And I go, oh, like what were the last 2 books you read? And she goes, Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. And I said, you love the classics. And she just lit up. I mean, her entire, everything changed. She just said, I do. And I said, maybe you're an author. And her eyes popped like that thing of recognition that you see like that. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to forget this moment as long as I live, because this girl, she's drawn to the word. She's drawn to like sentence and structure, and she's drawn to things that have lasting meaning, and she's drawn to these things, and in that could become purpose. And so it was funny that she went from being angry and frustrated to being light and joyful. And the friend that asked me to do that talk, I was at the Olympics in Pyeongchang, he sent me a picture of her, and she's working for the Olympic Channel now as a writer.
That's fabulous. Do you hear those stories all the time from people as they get into their own and they were successful, and they talk about who encouraged them along the way? So, Scott Hamilton, last question. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I don't know if there is such a thing as legacy. Children. Yeah, that's ultimately everyone's legacy. Our only chance at being immortal is passing on what we've learned to our children, who will pass it on to their children, who will pass it on to their children, who will pass it. And, it's like we're here for a minute. We're our bodies, I've learned, are very susceptible, fragile, vulnerable, countless things, right? We're also really resilient, right? We can overcome. But ultimately, we're temporary. So we talk about legacy, right?
Right.
A legacy, the only legacy I have is looking into my children's eyes and seeing that all I can do is give them everything I've got and allow them to step into the next. And, we'll be forgotten, and our deeds will be forgotten. And, so legacy is sort of like a myth, in a way. We can be I could be like a name in a history book that I won this, but nobody's going to see it or understand it. So, read Ecclesiastes if you want to understand what, kind of this is all about. But it just comes down to doing the best you can and hoping that you can make an impact in this world. Dick Button said it really well. He said, the only way to truly be considered great at anything is if you leave it better just by your participation.
I like that.
It's really great. You think about your community, you can make your community better just by your participation. It's not hard. You don't need a lot of money to do that. You can just show up, volunteer, spend time with somebody that needs someone or something.
Encourage someone,
right? But we all need it because, the world's a tough place.
Yes, it is.
And I don't mean to be a downer on that. I mean, it's a really tough place. But the second you kind of draw that line in the sand and says, no one's stealing my joy, no one, then you can kind of go, okay, well, I'm sorry that, that's the way it is, but, I'm going this way. And both fingers in front of me, I'm going forward. We got to keep moving forward, always forward, and not leaving anyone behind as best we can. There are always going to be those that are a little intentionally heavy that don't want to be brought along, and they'll just have to find their way, and they will in time, hopefully. We hope. But if I can be remembered for a short period of time as a serial optimist that really just wanted to help people, then I think I've done the best I can with what I've got. And if we can do that, I think if that's your identity, then that's a life well lived.
I love that. Definitely the theme for today. Adversity, encouragement, and attitude.
This too shall pass, whatever it is.
That's exactly right. Thank you very much, Scott Hamilton.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, please follow, rate, review, and share Make It Count wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Learn more at lbmc.com/podcast.